Hey guys, how would you like to increase your garlic size to this from this? If you would, keep watching. I'm going to show you how to grow garlic in container grow bags like this, and you'll have an even better garlic harvest year after year, and you'll never have to buy garlic again. So let's get in the greenhouse and I'll show you exactly how to do that. Hey guys, so today I'm talking about growing garlic, and you can see the different types of garlic there are out there. Now this is elephant garlic. It's not truly a real garlic. It's considered more in the leek family, but to me, it's just another type of garlic. This is a standard garlic clove, so you can see the difference in elephant versus just a standard white garlic, and it is tremendously larger. Just one of the bulbs on the elephant are huge. But anyways, today I'm going to be talking about growing these in grow bags and containers and why the benefits are so much greater. And doing this is something you really want to try at least once and just see what kind of results you get. But I'm going to teach you how to do it every step of the way, and probably 25 to 30 tips along the way, something you don't want to miss. So guys, the common grow bag is one of the things that I have just fallen in love with as far as growing different types of vegetables, and especially things like garlic. That's such an easy thing to grow. The grow bag makes it so much easier. It's got handles. It's just a perfect way of growing garlic. If you have a limited amount of space, if you're doing this on a balcony, a back patio, a back porch, this is a great way to do it. It's breathable, portable, and just an overall great way to grow garlic. Now you have to remember there's a little bit more chance of frost damage around the perimeter of the bag if you get really cold winter. So you want to make sure that you have some type of winter protection if you're in an extremely cold area. My area here in zone 7A is just not that big of a deal with our winter, so the garlic will make it through just fine. But just remember, if you're in an extremely cold winter zone, you want to make sure that you're going to be able to protect your garlic by moving it. And using a grow bag this big could be too much, so you may want to downsize. But the minimum size you want to go with is probably an average, something like a 5-gallon bucket. This might be heavy for someone to pick up if they have mobility issues, so just take that into account. But for me personally, this is the size bag I like to use. Now, there are two types of garlic in general. You have hardneck and softneck. One is more suited for colder environments, and one is better suited for warmer environments. So your hardneck garlic is going to be better suited for colder environments, and your softneck for warm. So just remember, depending on what part of the world you live in and what your average low temperature is and what your summers are like, you can pick your garlic based upon that. But there's a lot of different varieties, and so you can do a little bit of research on the variety you want. For me, I have no problem actually growing both. Now, as I said earlier, I'm opting for grow bags, but if you decide you want to do this in a 5-gallon bucket, I wouldn't go any smaller than 5 gallons. You're going to want to make sure you put lots of drainage holes in the bottom, but not too big because you don't want to have soil wash out. You also want to make sure that the bucket at the very bottom, about 2 inches, maybe some small like pea gravel, something that won't wash out easily, and that'll allow the proper drainage, because garlic does not like to sit in water. So just make sure whatever type of container you opt for, make sure it has perfect drainage. That's extremely important. So if you're like me and you have extremely hot summers, you're going to want to make sure that you protect your garlic from extreme heat before you have a chance to harvest it. One of the things I like to do is use an aluminum wrap, whether it's on the grow bag or the 5-gallon bucket. And on the grow bag, I can just take a stapler and staple this product to it. It's really easy to do, as this is a aluminum wrap that you can get at almost any hardware store, but I think I purchased this off Amazon. I'll put all the links to everything down below, as I always do. But this is something that's waterproof. You can cut it to the exact size you need it, and this will also help protect the garlic from getting the soil from getting overheated and having damage there. You can also be creative and put it on the surface to reflect if you have too much heat in the summertime. So just remember, you want to protect the garlic if you have a really hot environment. So I once grew my garlic in my raised beds outside. I think I have 22 or 23 different raised beds, ranging some 4x4 and some 4x8. But I have a limited amount of space that I want to use for other things, so that cuts back on where I can plant the garlic. And I just would rather use grow bags because it's so much easier to move them around, make sure they get the right amount of sunlight. So as far as if you do have raised beds or room in your garden, then that's no problem. You can just plant them out there for bulk growth. But for me personally, I've switched over to using grow bags exclusively for my garlic. So grow bags kind of have the advantages or the similarities of a raised bed. There's a lot of points I really like about it. I'm going to shoot through just a few quick ones about why I think grow bags are the way to go with garlic. So the roots themselves have access to more air. It's more breathable. than a plastic pot or a 5-gallon bucket, or if you have a very large terracotta pot. That can breathe as well, but this is one of the optimal ways to allow that breathing action to happen, and it keeps the roots of the garlic from having root rot. It also will help prevent the roots from circling in a smaller size pot or a 5-gallon bucket, and so that's really important to be able to have that free growth in such a versatile container. And probably another thing, probably the thing I love most about the grow bags is the handles on the side, which make them extremely portable. Now, of course, this one is, I believe this is a 20 or 25 gallon. I've purchased it a while back and I can't remember which it was, but anyways, it's quite heavy with all its soil in it, but you can go down to a gallon size up to this size, and I believe there's sizes even above this one. So that's just what I like to do. I think it grows better, and I think you end up with a better product in the final analysis. So guys, what I do as far as soil composition on the large 25-gallon cloth containers, I do a 40% homemade premium potting mix, and I'll link the video up top to exactly how I make that. Then I do another 40% of black cow compost. It's what I buy all the time. Guys, if you're listening, you can send me a coupon anytime you want to. But anyways, I use 40/40 and then 20% perlite. Then I'm going to need to dump this into a larger container and mix it thoroughly to make sure it's well mixed. So I'm going to go ahead and add the black cow, and then I'll mix it thoroughly once I've done that. So guys, what I'm going to do is I've added my perlite, and one thing I will say when you're adding perlite is try not to breathe the dust because it's not good for your lungs. But you can also wash perlite gently with water and then put it back into your container if it's got a ability to drain. But let's just dump this, and then I'm going to mix it. And so now I know I have exactly the right amount for my grow bag. And the way I'm going to mix it is I'm going to take a stiff garden rake, not the plastic kind, but the metal kind. I'm just going to go back and forth, mixing it carefully until it's well mixed, just pulling it from the bottom and just continually mixing. Now, the reason we're adding the perlite is we want the maximum amount of drainage in our garlic soil. So guys, now that we have thoroughly mixed our perlite compost and premium potting soil that we've made ourselves, we're going to shovel it back into our grow bag. And this is the ideal. You can really tell that there is a ton of perlite in there. And again, once again, that is for drainage. Okay guys, so I've compressed the soil just a little bit, not too much. I don't want to hinder any type of drainage, but it's perfect now for planting, except for one more additive we need to add to the soil, and these are worm castings. I really highly recommend this. Believe it or not, I purchased these off Amazon. I didn't get it from the big box store, but I would take at least 2 large handfuls and just go around the top of the soil, and we're going to mix that in there, and this is going to help with microbial activity and really help the garlic do what it can naturally do. And I think I might actually go up to three handfuls because my gloves I don't think are grabbing as much as I would like. So, and you're going to mix that into the top layer of soil before you plant, before you put your garlic in. You just give it a light mixing there and then smooth it back out to a level surface. And so now you have something in the soil that's really going to help with a slow release. It's going to be like a slow release fertilizer and act, as I said just a second ago, increase microbial, if I can say that, microbial activity. So the black cow compost I talked about is this brand right here, and I would never be offended if they sent me some coupons. That would be quite a delight if I could get some discount coupons for this product, because it works great, but when you're on a budget, that always helps a bit too. But one thing about the black cow, it's going to help with enriching the soil and improving its texture. It's going to act as a slow release, kind of as a slow release fertilizer. It's going to slowly release nutrients over time, and it's also going to help retain and create a consistent moisture level in your grow bag or whatever other type of container you have. If it's a plastic container or a raised vegetable bed, that black cow is really going to make a huge difference. Next, we're going to gently try to break our bulbs apart into smaller pieces, and we may have to use a knife to do that if they're really tight, but just peel away the paper layers and it may get easier as you get down. You may want to cut your roots off as well, but I'm just going to take layer after layer of paper and then clean it up in a second, and just keep twisting if it's a really tight bulb and you can't get the cloves to break apart. As you can see, it's starting to show. As we take layer and layer of paper away, we're starting to see individual cloves, and we'll clean up the mess on the soil in just a second, but I just want to gently break these apart. And you see they're coming apart right there. And take each individual clove, because we're planting one clove at a time. So just continue to remove that paper until you have a set of cloves all ready for planting. Okay, we have our cloves divided down to individual pieces of garlic, and we're just going to keep making sure that they're all separated there. We're going to plant these about 1 to 2 inches deep in the soil, and we're going to allow about 4 inches apart from each one. So we're going to have the entire area of our grow bag filled with garlic. Now, adequate spacing can ensure the bulbs grow to their full size and full potential without competition. Remember, you don't want to put each one in there too close. 1 inch apart would be far too close to each other, so about 4 inches in general. Okay guys, the next thing we're going to want to do is put in about a 1.5 to 2 inch layer of straw mulch. We're just going to carefully put this in. Now, one thing I would tell you about straw mulch, be careful where you get it from. You need to look for a supplier that does not spray their straw with any type of herbicide. You don't want that to destroy your potential crop. And so just make sure that's the case. And if there's no herbicide, you're good to go. I'm just going to spread this a little messy, but we're just going to spread it across the top. This is going to help with protecting it from any possible overheating. It's going to keep the soil protected, but also it's going to retain excessive moisture, but also it's going to suppress any weed seeds that are in the soil. So just remember, you want to put about a 1.5 to 2 inch layer of straw on top, and that's going to help it. Now, one thing I didn't mention earlier about the aluminum wrap is that helps in the summer, but it can also help in the winter. By putting this wrap on there, it can help keep keep heat in. So just remember, the aluminum wrap is not only a protection from heat getting to your roots, but also it can be a protection of heat escaping when you have those really cold winter days. So guys, once you have your garlic planted, you're going to want to monitor the moisture level in the top 1 inch of the soil. And I always recommend having a really good moisture meter. It also serves as a great pH meter too. Has a light meter on there as well. And the price on these are really nice, so I'll link that as well. But once that top 1 inch of soil dries out, then you can water it. Some people will go the entire winter without watering. I just think it's a good idea, especially in my area where even in the wintertime, we can have some pretty warm days, 70, even 80-degree days in the middle of winter, which is a little rare, but it can happen. So just make sure you're checking that top 1 inch of soil to make sure it's not completely dried out. Also, you're going to want to make sure there's proper drainage. If your bag is sitting in an area where you can't see the bottom and you can't be sure there's good drainage going on, put some gravel under it, set it on a couple of large bricks or a pallet of some type just to elevate it off the ground so you can witness the drainage happening, because sometimes if you have a lot of grass growing around it, you may not realize it, but the bag may have settled into the area and it may be just consistently moist at the bottom, and that moisture at the very bottom 1 to 2 inches of a grow bag can be wicked easily up to whatever you're growing, and it can cause root rot and cause a huge problem for that plant. So just remember, elevate if you're not sure about if your drainage is proper or not. Now, garlic is going to need about 6 to 8 hours minimum of sunlight each day, and you want to position it wherever you do where it gets that or more. And also you want to rotate the bag so it's getting even light distribution. Just spin the bag around. If the light's mainly on this side, if your south facing sun is that way, just rotate the bag to make sure the sunlight, and that way you'll have consistently large garlic on both sides of the bag. Just remember that. Now, garlic requires during its growth phase anywhere from 55 to 75-degree temperature Fahrenheit, and that's another thing these little monitors can do. They can tell you what your soil temperature is, and so you can monitor that as well. You can add a burlap sack or the aluminum that I showed you to prevent any excessive heat or not enough heat. It can kind of lock it in there for you and keep it warmer. So just remember, you want that 55 to 75 optimal range for growth during its growth phase, not during this dormant winter phase. Now, one thing is if you can't easily move the bag and it's going to have to stay in its location, you can do that trick we were talking about protecting here, but on top you can add 4, 5, even 6 more inches of the straw, and then you can remove that once the growing season begins. But just remember, you want to protect it from extreme cold. I don't get those extremely cold days, but there has been times we had unusually cold weather. Now this is going to be growing right outside of the greenhouse where I can easily move it back inside if there's a really blast of Arctic-like air coming through. So just remember that huge layer of mulch on top can save your garlic in the winter, as well as protecting the sides, because this is just cloth. Of course, plastic's not going to do a lot more anyways, or terracotta for that matter, but you can protect it by putting some type of insulation around the bag as well. Now, garlic can thrive in zones 3 through 8, and I'll put a link or in the description down below. I'll put the different types of garlic and what zones they grow best in. But like I said earlier, 3 through 8 is going to be your optimal growing areas for garlic, but with the right protection, that can even be expanded beyond if you can provide good winter protection, or if it's too hot, you can add something to cool down the soil temperature. But remember, this is more of a cool season thing that's going to be taking place. So the ideal pH of the soil is going to be 6.5 to 7.5, so slightly acidic to just neutral, right around in there. So if it's too acidic, you can add lime to increase the pH or sulfur to lower it. So just remember, a pH monitor is going to help you a great deal, not only with garlic, but so many other things you're growing in the garden. So your expectations in spring, you should start seeing really vibrant green shoots coming from the soil and of course you want to remember, if you've added a lot more straw, remember to cut that back to the 2-inch, 1.5 to 2 inches of straw. But you should start seeing green shoots coming through the straw, and they should be very bright green. If they're not, if they're yellow or weak looking or a little bit droopy, you could have a nutritional deficiency, and you're going to need to address that to make sure your bulbs are going to be at their maximum size and flavor. So once your shoots appear, you're going to want to start with a balanced fertilizer. This is a slow release fertilizer, but you can also just opt for something around 10-10-10, and that should give you a good start. But once they establish about midway through the season, you want to switch over to something like this, a bloom booster, which has a very high phosphorus content. I believe it's something like 54 is the phosphorus count. Normal nitrogen, but the phosphorus is extremely high, and that's what's going to help with the bulb development. So just remember, you're going to water with this at full strength once it's in its mid-season, not initially. Initially, we're going with the balanced fertilizer, but then switch to that. If you want to go with a more organic method, you can do bone meal, and that also has a very high phosphorus level in it as well. But I'm sold on Bloom Booster because I've seen so many positive results in things like my azaleas and many other things, but especially something where we want root, tuber, and bulb development below the surface. This is a great product. So one way you can tell that your garlic is ready to harvest is the bottom third of the bulb starts to turn brown, and you'll know that it's ready to come out of the ground. But you want to do a couple of tests also before you do that. Pull the soil back away from the leaves or your sprouts and make sure that the garlic is mature, and also lightly press on it and make sure it's firm and that it has lots of paper layers to know that it is mature. Now, curing your garlic is a fairly easy process. You just want to put it on a shelf in like a garage, somewhere that moisture can't get to it. You can put a very small fan, maybe on a timer, that's going to blow on the garlic to help it dry, and just make sure that it has that curing process. About 2 to 3 weeks is going to be about what that takes you. Now, once that 2 to 3 weeks has passed, you want to trim off the roots and cut about 1 inch from the base of the garlic to allow that storage. But once you do that, make sure you've removed all the dirt and store it in a cool, dry area. Now, one thing about growing garlic in these bags is you don't want to grow the same crop 2 years in a row. You want to rotate the crops, so if there's any diseases that's happening in the soil, you can kind of cut that off before it makes it to the garlic happening again next year. So just remember, you want to rotate your crops, grow something else in there, tomatoes, potatoes, whatever, but just remember, rotate them around. And that's what the benefit of buying these, because you can buy them really at a good price, and you can buy 10 at one time for just dollars a piece. Now, if you want to see a detailed video where I talk about natural pest control with neem oil, diatomaceous earth, and other products, I'll link that up above. But that's the thing that I really believe, that when you're growing something under the soil like potatoes and garlic, you want to make sure you don't use an industrial pesticide. You want to use something as safe as possible, something that you're going to be consuming directly. So if your garlic tries to send out flowers, or as it's called, scapes, you don't want that to happen. You don't want bolting to occur. You want to snip those off, because you want the energy of the plant to be put down below the soil into your bulbs. Now, as talking about nutrition for your plants, I think about once a month you should add a 1/4 inch layer of the worm castings, and that's going to also help quite a bit. You'd be surprised how much worm castings can do to the garlic and help it grow and increase the flavor and size as well. So as far as getting your propagation started for next year, always choose your healthiest bulbs that are really firm and that look very healthy, and just store those separate from the ones that you're going to be consuming. And that will ensure that you always have this even supply going of garlic, and you'll never have to buy bulbs again. Now at the end of season, you want to make sure you clean your bags thoroughly for any diseases that might be in there. And you can use a very mild detergent on these bags and it'll last for years and years. I like to use on my plastic buckets, I use quite a simple method of doing that, and that's with the generic form of Listerine. You can get that at the dollar store, and it's one of the easiest ways. You just spray it and wipe it down. But in the bags, it's a little different. I'm going to recommend you use a mild detergent because the Listerine is just not going to be the same as using in a plastic container. So remember, that's an easy way. Clean out your bag thoroughly and just lightly wash it down with a really gentle dish detergent. So another thing about freshly harvested garlic versus the cured, the fresh garlic has a milder flavor. So if you want something that's not quite as strong or pungent, go with the freshly harvested garlic, or if you like the stronger garlic flavor, then stick to the cured garlic. But either way, it's great, and I absolutely love garlic. So guys, with the soil added, this has become quite a bit heavier than it was, but I can still move it, but it's not as easy. But anyways, I'm going to move it out to the garden and give it a heavy watering. And I just want to say thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you found anything helpful, I hope you'll like and subscribe, or leave me a comment down below of anything I might have missed. But anyways, I think you'll really enjoy growing garlic. It's really a beginner, easy thing to grow, and kids love it. It's one of those things, garlic, potatoes, and some sour cream, and you've got a meal just in that alone.